Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mei Leaf in this video reviewing supermarket teas. In these videos, what we do is we blind taste 3 teas from a supermarket, not a specialist tea store, and I give you my opinion on them. I try to work out what they are because I know nothing about them. I guess the price point for these teas, and then finally I give the teas a score from 0 to 10. Let's quickly take a look at the scoring system. You can see that we score from poison all the way up to pinnacle tea, and it's worth noting that a score of 10 means that the tea is good enough to be selected as a Mei Leaf tea. For those of you who don't know, Mei Leaf are tea curators, which means that every year we taste hundreds and hundreds of different teas from China, Japan, Taiwan and other countries, and we select a very, very small quantity of our absolute favorites. We call these pinnacle teas. It would be wildly unfair to expect supermarkets to stock this level of tea because they work within a very, very different set of constraints when buying their tea. They've obviously got to be very, very sensitive on price. They've got to make sure that they can purchase large quantities of the tea, and it's just a slightly different market. And so anything, in my opinion, above a 5 is good for a supermarket. Anything above a 7 is a real pat on the back. And if we find a tea that is a score of 8 or above, then I will shout out that brand so you can go and seek out that brand. If it's below that, I'm not going to mention any brands. All that we're going to be mentioning is the supermarket, and today the supermarket is Muller. I've never heard of Muller, I've never gone to Muller, but kindly, Kruno from Zagreb in Croatia sent these teas to us. Thank you to everybody who has been sending us supermarket teas. We are going to be getting through them, I promise you. So Kruno in Croatia, in Zagreb, thank you very much for sending these 3 teas. I know nothing about them. Celine, whenever I find out that it's one of these supermarket teas, I quickly close the package. Celine gets them, she can open it up, and she's written down the information about the teas, but I don't know anything about them. I can obviously see them here, but I don't know what they are. So we're gonna go through and do that blind tasting. Are you ready to go? Let's start with tea number 1. And I can see from the beginning that this is a green tea. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure it out directly. So put that there. And I reckon that we want to have in a 100 ml Gaiwan around 3.5 grams of this. 3.5 grams, so it's 3.7. You know what? It's a bit, the leaves look a bit light to me. When I see them falling, they look a little bit like they don't have much density. So I'm gonna increase with just over 4 grams here. So what I'm trying to do is get the absolute best out of these teas. I'm not trying to sort of brew them any other way than I would the best possible tea that I've got in my collection. So we're gonna be brewing Gongfu style in our stay loose Gaiwans here. We're gonna heat these up. The water, I did clock that it was a green tea, so the water is already at 87 degrees, so it's slightly cooler than boiling. Give it a little fish face. Some of the water. All right, let's get these leaves in here. You can see here, switch this off. You can see here that the leaves are a mixture of colors. You're getting slightly darker greens and lighter greens rolled in a gunpowder style. So my guess immediately here is that this is a Chinese gunpowder tea, which in general is the more cheap, affordable types of green tea. Very, very widely produced. A lot of people come into Mei Leaf tea house and they request gunpowder tea because of the fact that that's their first exposure to Chinese green tea, but we don't stock a gunpowder tea at present. We're currently doing all of our spring tea tastings. I'm speaking to you from April, so we're doing all of our spring tea tastings. So we've been tasting probably about 20 to 30 teas every single day for the past few weeks. It's been a bit crazy. It's always a crazy time selecting the tea. So this is I'm not gonna say welcome break, but my taste buds are excited to taste a slightly different area of the tea producing world. Smell, very, very light, simple. It's got a classic smell of green tea that has been left for a long time. My suggestion would be that this is certainly not been picked in the last, I mean, it may be picked in 2018 spring, but I'm going to guess it's even older than that just by the smell of it. There's a certain sweet sort of, and it sounds quite nice, but actually with green tea, I don't like it. It's a sort of sakura plum blossom smell to it. I know that sounds nice, but when I smell it with the green tea, that is a little warning sign that says this tea is old. So let's give it a rinse. Small aperture on the guy one because they are quite small pellets, these gunpowder teas. I want to try and keep as much in here as possible. There you go. All right, now, first true test of a tea is always the smell of those wet leaves. Let's go. Yeah, smelling that mulchy, musty aroma, a little bit of ashtray note going through. But on the positive sides, there's a sort of citrus, almost like the smell of floor cleaner. And now I'm not meaning that in a negative way, but those very citrus, bright, fresh pine floor cleaners, a little bit of strawberry going on. Yeah, some just mashed up strawberries, so that's really nice. But there's a definite mustiness, and my suspicion is that this tea is going to be a little bit damp tasting and a little bit musty tasting. Fish face gets a little dousing of the gunpowder. I'm going to guess this is from China. It looks Chinese. Might be wrong. We shall see. Okay. I'm going to do a relatively quick infusion, but I'm going to maybe brew it a bit stronger than you would expect because we're not going to taste too many infusions and I want to assess it, okay? I am as a tea buyer, I'm very used to tasting a tea which is overbrewed intentionally in order to assess the quality markers of the tea. I then obviously always taste with the exact brewing parameters that I'd want. So I intentionally overbrewed this to begin with, temperatures at 86 degrees, because I want to really assess it from the beginning. Immediately when I brought it to my nose, I picked up a little burnt, smoky note, which means that the shaching process was not the heating process, that's the shaching process, which all green teas have to go through, was, let's say, done not with the absolute level of perfection. So they've scorched a few leaves. The taste is very, very bland. Considering that I've intentionally overbrewed this, I'm really not getting much of that fruitiness that I was getting in the nose. Texture, thin to medium. Taste is very, very non-existent. I mean, I don't really get much flavor in this brew. I'm going to give it one last brew, although I already know that that's not going to help. But just in case I'm wrong, the reason why my vocabulary on this tea in terms of taste is very, very sparse is because it has very little flavor. Very, very little flavor at all, and very little finish. It tastes a little bit like I have taken, you know, when you've had a tea, for those tea heads out there, when you've had a green tea and you've left it overnight and you come back and it's that brown color and it's just oxidized, it tastes like that. It tastes like that all the freshness has gone, all of the vibrancy and aromatics that may have been in the leaf at the beginning have gone. And I just have a sort of oxidized taste, a slight sweetness in the aftertaste. It is just about something that can be called tea, but Not much better than that, not much higher quality than your average green tea tea bag, in my opinion. It's nice and warming. First drink of the day on a Saturday. So that's nice, and you know what? It's perfectly drinkable. It might work very well combined with something. It's that sort of strong green tea taste. And when I say the taste it's not a strong taste, but that astringent mouthfeel that makes it feel like you're having a tea. Taste is not there, aroma's not there, but it definitely has an aftertaste. So if you combined it with something aromatic, it might be better. You know, I can imagine that you always see gunpowder mint tea or, you know, other combinations like that, Moroccan mint tea. I can imagine that it would, if you threw a few pellets, or quite a few pellets because it's not that strong, into some mint tea, it could work very well, just to give it a little bit of structure and foundation to those aromas. But other than that, nothing very, very special. So I'm going to guess it's a gunpowder green tea, and I think that it's cheapish. I'm going to guess certainly under 5 cents a gram, probably because it's whole leaf, higher than 1 or 2. I would say between 3 to 5 cents a gram. And score on this, let's look at that scoring system. It is in between you can call it tea and meh. I would say, because of the lack of flavor in it, it's disappointed me. I thought that the whole leaf material, or at least semi-whole leaf material, would be better. I would say 3.4 is a fair score for that. So in between you can call it tea and meh. Muller, your first tea not quite hitting the mark. Let's see what this is. Celine has written it out. Number 1 here is gunpowder tea. Yep, gunpowder green tea. I don't know where it's from. Maybe that information was not forthcoming. And price, okay, so yeah, on the lower end of the spectrum that I was considering. So fair price for a meh tea. I would stay away from that one. Nothing for you to bother keeping in your cupboard. Okay, let's see, Muller, what you got in store with number 2. Here we go. Let's see, this is looking different. Okay, different color of these leaves. We're getting a mix of little green flecks going through here and a few little woody stems, but then the predominance is this sort of auburn chestnut colors of a, I'm going to say black tea here. And it looks like a subcontinent black tea. It doesn't look Chinese. So the reason I'm saying that is because, first of all, the style of production here is very cut up compared to the last one. So this makes me think that the production method is much more that moving towards those sort of commodity produced black teas. I can see that the oxidation level you can see is very, very, very wide. So you're getting greens all the way to black. So you've got a very, very wide spectrum of oxidation, which may be intentional. It makes me think that this is more in the sort of Darjeeling territory, because if you think of those first flush Darjeelings, they tend to be more looking for a sort of green character black tea, if that makes any sense. I doubt this is made in China. I doubt this is made in Taiwan. I would say this comes from India, Sri Lanka, those areas, and I would say, smells quite nice. I would say that it is more of a Darjeeling style tea. So I'm going to put the temperature to 90. Got another Stay Loose Guy one here. Just rinse out this cup. I should rinse out this Gong Dao Bei, even though the previous tea had very little flavor to influence it. Okay, I didn't actually measure how much is in here. I was just looking at the leaf, but I'm gonna throw most of that in. I'm gonna guess that's around 4 grams, something like that. Don't wanna overdo it. Okay, let's have a smell. Yeah, much more perfumed, much lighter in terms of aroma, and more fragrance for sure. Definitely more in those bright, flowery, sweet, simple white flowers. Very, very sweet. Nice aroma. I'm getting some woodsy notes which combine very nicely with those sweet white flowers. I don't know why I say white flowers, but when I think of it, I'm imagining things like white orchids. It's not that strong. Things like lilies, again, not that strong, but just imagine taking those sort of sweet aromas and just dialing down the volume so it's a very, very light smell. Combine it with some nice, just dried woods, a tiny bit of toffee malt, but very, very, very limited. Nice smell. Smells, again, Darjeeling-esque, or at least tea of that sort of ilk. It's a black tea, I'm sure. It's a black tea gone through a hard wither. What I mean by that is that they dried this for they dried this hard, and they dried this for a fair long period of time. So they're stopping the oxidation less through the heating process and more through the drying process, which is why you get some green flecks, unless they've combined it afterwards, but I don't know the production method. It's very, very diverse. The leaf color. Smell is very nice though. You know, it's got a good aroma to it. I'll give it that. For a black tea, lots of sweetness, lots of floral notes. I like it. That was the rinse. So fish face gets first dibs. Now we're going to brew this up. 90 degrees. Again, probably going to just overbrew it a little bit just to really give this a fair tasting. Find out all the good and the bad in the tea. Here we go. Number 2 from Kruno. And I don't know if Kruno likes these teas. He didn't, well, I didn't read any letters, so I'm assuming that this is his local supermarket. Remember, these are not specialist tea stores. These are supermarkets. We've always got to remember that. Color is pretty. Nice gold with a slight green note to it, at least on my end. Through the camera, it looks a little bit more orange. Let's give this a taste. A lot better than the last tea. Definitely much more flavor going on here. So I'm getting woody notes. The woody notes are more pencil shavings, you know, that sort of woodiness. Very, very nice, light woodiness. But I'm also getting some more floral notes and a little bit more citrus notes. And the flavor profile is starting to head towards much more of a, I would say, into the spectrum of Oriental Beauty Taiwanese oolong. Now, it's not as strong in terms of those linalool and citrus notes as Oriental Beauty, but it's close, and it makes sense because Darjeelings, just like Oriental Beauty or Dongfang Meiren, go through that extended withering phase, and that brings out a darker tea, and it seems to accentuate those more honeyed, more the combination of honey and orange and citrus. However, it is not as good as an Oriental Beauty, nowhere near, but it's just in that territory in terms of flavors. You can see the picking here is not super fine. These are, young to medium leaves. So the Indian classification for picking, they have all these letters you'll see next to them, S, F, T, G. So super, tippy, finest, golden, orange, flowery orange pico. I would say that this is more of the standard picking. So it doesn't have a lot of those tippy buds. It doesn't have a lot of that very, very fine furry buds. I think it's mostly small to medium leaves, like a flowery orange pico. So the standard variety of picking, or the standard grade of picking. Let's give it another brew, but much more pleasant. So I'm getting a nice lingering orange citrus zest in the mouth. And I have to say, a welcome break after that first tea. It is a little bit dry and certainly fairly woody, pencil shaving woodiness. Let's see what the second infusion has in store for us. Cheers, everybody. Yeah, look, it's not gonna really evolve and change. It's not gonna be an interesting dynamic journey in any way. But it is a perfectly pleasant tea. I would say it is almost certainly a Darjeeling, and it would be a first flush versus a second flush simply on the basis that it doesn't have that much fruitiness. It certainly doesn't taste like it has more of those fruitier muscatel notes that you would expect from a second flush Darjeeling. I would say that this is a very standard, basic grade Darjeeling, or at least imitating Darjeeling. Score, definitely worth reinfusing. I don't think it's quite instashable, but it's not far off. I'm gonna give this a 5.7 for this. Price point, I'm gonna guess is more expensive. I'm gonna guess it's around 5 cents per gram, something like that. Let's see what we've got here. Number 2. Okay, so this is Darjeeling, first flush. FOP, so flowery orange pico. So yeah, not the absolute top grade in terms of the picking grade, but decent, and the price is good, very reasonable. So what we're learning is Muller does not overcharge for their teas. They may not be giving you the best out there, but they're not overcharging you. So I think that that's a fair price for that tea, personally. So well done. And as I said, anything above a 5 is worth some congratulations. I'm even going in for another sip. All right, we'll be right back for tea number 3. Tea number 3 from Zagreb, from Muller supermarket, kindly sent to us by Kruno in Croatia. Here we go, tea number 3. Let's take a look. Is it another black tea? Looks like it's another black tea, I think. I'm gonna put 3.5 grams in of this. Colors, much darker, you can see. This, I mean, a little bit broken up, but definitely more oxidized. Let's give this a sniff in a hot Gaiwan. Starting to get a bit chaotic here. Again, we're going to give the Gong Dao Bei a quick rinse. Then put these leaves in. Number 3. Here we go. Let's have a sniff. Oh, okay. Not a black tea. My bad. So this is a PuErh tea. This is a cooked PuErh tea. It's got a combination of fudge and fish in the aroma. The fudge I like, the fish I don't. Take a little look at those leaves yourself. So yeah, that's why it is dark. This is a ripe PuErh tea. I'm gonna guess it comes from China. Judging by the aroma on it, it is probably not that old. The reason I'm saying that is because that sort of slightly fishy aroma comes from the fact that it hasn't had enough time to air out. I mean, it's not, believe me, it's not bad. It's just there, so it might be about 3 years old. And other than that, a little bit of a sweet, fudgy note going on. So I'm gonna boost this up to 96 degrees. I'll give it a quick rinse and then we'll heat it up further to 96 degrees, as it says on my kettle. So with PuErh tea, with cooked PuErh tea, you need to really get your nose into those wet leaves. There's going to be a lot more aroma here. That is weird. Now it's starting to smell more like a black tea. Oh, that is really, really, really strange. It's like someone switched the teas when I wasn't looking. This smells like a lemony black tea. And it's got PuErh notes in it. Now I'm starting to doubt myself. It's either a really funkily made black tea or a really funkily made PuErh tea. But it really has a black tea aroma to it, which is super odd. Fish face can get first taste. We're at 96 degrees. It will be okay for either black or PuErh. Really, really strange. That's come out of left field for me. I don't really understand that. It had a definite PuErh note in the dry leaf, but the wet leaf just so much more black tea note. Color, again, looks more like a black tea. Very strange. Very, very strange. It's honestly smells like a combo. Cloudy, not particularly appealing in terms of the color's nice, but the cloudiness is not something that I particularly am excited about, especially if it is a PuErh tea. Is it a PuErh tea? Super confused. All right, taste will hopefully give us all the answers. Cheers, everybody. Taste does not give us any answers. Very weird. Extremely odd. Extremely odd. This is like a hybrid between a very woody, we talked about pencil shavings in the last tea, like pencil shavings galore, mountains of pencil shavings. So very, very woody, very old tasting woody black tea, combined with some notes of a PuErh tea, but very, very sparse notes of a PuErh tea. So I'm getting a little bit of that fudgy note that we were picking up in the dry leaf. If it is a cooked PuErh tea, it's very, very short fermentation. Extremely short. And it's really giving me an itch or scratch in the back of my throat. If it's a cooked PuErh tea, then this really is not good enough because it tastes like they have not fermented it anywhere near long enough, and they've just thought, well, why don't we just oxidize it instead? Be much quicker than the 2 months that it takes for fermentation. We'll do a quick piling process, maybe a couple of weeks or a week just to sort of kickstart it. We can still call it PuErh tea, and then we'll just oxidize it out and it will taste similar to a black tea. Very strange. Okay, let's try and pick up some flavor notes. Very dry, very scratchy. I'm getting some of that old store taste that I was talking about with the green tea, that sort of sakura blossom, which again I shouldn't be tasting that in a cooked PuErh tea. Simple as that. It makes me think that this is either a black tea, which is very, very old and sort of gone a bit stale in the cupboard, or it's a PuErh tea which has not been produced properly, in my opinion. Either way, I'm not very enamored with this sucker here. Much clearer in this, well, not, I was gonna say, but it actually is quite cloudy still. Super odd tea. I'm just interested to keep drinking it, not because I'm enjoying it, but because I'm trying to work out what it is. Okay, last infusion from this tea from Zagreb. Stony, mineral dryness, very, very itchy and scratchy. The texture's almost a bit grainy in my mouth. The leaf looks, if you showed me that leaf, I would say that was a black tea. You can see the colors are very, very much more of the auburn orange colors that you'd expect out of a black tea rather than the more chocolatey colors of a PuErh. I have to take a guess here, and I'm going to guess that this is it's so difficult. I'm flipping between black tea and PuErh tea. I've never had this. I can't remember the last time I didn't know a tea type. So hats off to you, Kruno. You've stumped me here. I'm going to go black tea, but I'm going to go very old black tea. I'm going to go Chinese. I'm going to go... I'm going to go a very old... One more, hold on. It's right down the middle. I will go with my first instinct. But then Chinese black teas don't look like this. I'm going to go with it though. I'll go with a black tea and very, very old. Very, very stale black tea from China, maybe Anhui province, like a low quality Anhui black tea that has somehow picked up some PuErh notes. Price point on this, wouldn't have a clue because I don't even know the tea type. I'm gonna say 4 cents a gram. Certainly not a tea that I would particularly enjoy. Score on this without knowing the tea type, well, it doesn't matter. What would I give this? Very scratchy, very dry. If it's a black tea, it's not a good black tea. If it's a PuErh tea, it's not a good PuErh tea. At least it's got more flavor than the gunpowder. Let's go with a 3.9, just under meh. 3.9 is what we'll give it. Let's see what this is. I'm fascinated by this. Okay, I got it wrong. It is a PuErh tea. It's a PuErh tea and it's 4 cents a gram, which is kind of close to what I was saying. It's a cooked PuErh tea that tastes like a black tea. Extremely, in my opinion, poor production. That has been shortcutted like crazy. What I mean by that is they did not go through a full fermentation with that tea. They have just literally piled it for about, my guess is less than 2 weeks, and they just wrapped it all up, allowed it to oxidize, and just said, yeah, we'll call that PuErh tea and we'll mark up the price because that is the most expensive tea that Muller has, right? We had three cents and 2 cents. So yes, marking up the price for this very, very, I mean, now that I know that it's a PuErh tea, I want to score it down, but I'm not allowed to do that because it's got to be on taste, simply on the basis that that is poor production for that one. So Muller, you got some teas in the 3s. You managed to get tea above a 5. Overall, okay. You know, as we said, supermarkets have a different level of constraints they need to work under, but we're trying to get the standard of teas at least to be teetering above 5. You managed to get 1 in this Darjeeling. The others I would stay well away from, and that is a bit nuts. Kruno, what do you think about that tea? I hope that I haven't offended you, Kruno. If you love these teas, then keep drinking. But in my opinion, the Darjeeling is the only one worth consuming. If you are interested in sending us some teas for these reviews of supermarkets, make sure that you remember we do not want teas from a specialist tea store. This has to be from a supermarket. What we define by a supermarket is it needs to sell all sorts. It needs to sell baby food and tomatoes and toothpaste and tea. Then it's a supermarket. This one is from Muller in Zagreb. Decent prices, but not very good tea. That's it, tea heads. Check out our other videos. Taste our teas no matter where you are in the world by visiting us online, or come visit us in Camden if you're ever in London. Other than that, I'm Don from Mei Leaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags. Keep drinking the good stuff and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.